Hello everybody and welcome to this video on question 3 on paper 2 of the AQA GCSE English language exam. Okay, so this question on paper 2 is very similar to question 2 on paper 1. It assesses assessment objective 2, which is to explain, comment on and analyse how writers use language and structure to achieve effects and influence readers. And more specifically, you are being asked to analyse the language, which is words, phrases, language features, techniques and sentence forms within the text that you're given, okay? Obviously, we know with paper 2 that those two texts, those two sources are non-fiction extracts, and paper 1 was a fiction extract. So that's where the difference lies. But other than that, the questions are the same in that they are asking you both to analyse language and consider the effects of the word choices within the sources that you've been given. So this question is worth 12 marks as opposed to the 8-mark question on paper 1. And in order to get level 4, which is 10 to 12 marks, you need to produce a detailed and perceptive answer. And all that means is that you need to select a number of different features or words or phrases that answer the question. You need to use quote and you need to analyse the words in those quotes and consider the effect on the reader. So the example paragraph that is stated in the AQA specimen mark scheme is this, and you will notice that they mention the language technique of direct address. They also mention what word class is within the quote that they have used. And they also say time-lapse, so another technique at the bottom. They make sure that they offer a suggestion as to what is suggested by the quote, and they also say what the effect on the reader is. So when you are writing your paragraphs, you need to make sure that you cover all of these things that are suggested within that level 4 paragraph. So the lowdown on question 3 is this, that you must analyse the effect of the words on the reader, okay, with specific reference to the question that you're given. So the effect is hugely important, and I will show you the paragraph flowchart that I use for this answer in just a moment. So I wouldn't really focus on specific language features unless you can easily find them and unless they actually answer the question. But I would advise just look for words or phrases which answer the question. So any words that you think, oh yeah, that does answer the question, don't worry if it's not a specific language feature, but use that as your quote, and then you will need to analyse what is suggested by the words and the effect on the reader. This question will be focused on one of the sources, and it may be focused on a specific section. Okay, so all of the questions that I've seen, all of the sample ones, they have given specified line numbers for this. They haven't said whether they will do that in the exam. They might do, okay? So again, it's reading the question and making sure that you actually answer that question, and if they do specify line numbers that you've got to take your quotes from, making sure that you do take your quotes from that area of the text. Now it's a 12-mark question, and I would aim to write 5 paragraphs in that 15 minutes, okay, for this. That's a lot to write. So all I would say is if you haven't written 5 paragraphs in that time, do not worry, just move on to the next question, okay? Time in this exam is crucial. You've got to make sure that you don't spend too much time on the earlier, lower mark questions. So if you're writing about 4 paragraphs for this, that's fine, okay? Just write as much as you can within that 15 minutes. I've got a video on Read My Rules. I am hoping that by now you have already watched some of my videos in this series and you'll be familiar with Read My Rules, and it's an easy way to remember lots of language features. So I would advise that if you haven't done so already, watch my video on Read My Rules, okay? Learn all of those different techniques, because those are the kind of techniques that you'll be looking for within your sources. You also need to learn your word classes if you don't know them already, okay? Easier ones, noun, verbs, adjectives and adverbs. You should know those 4, okay? So make sure you are aware of what types of words you are going to be analysing. Okie dokie, so I have this source available on my website acaexams.wordpress.com, and the question that I've written for it is to look closely at lines 9 to 22 and to analyse how the writer uses language to suggest their disbelief in ghosts, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through how I would use my paragraph flowchart in order to answer this question, okay? So I'm just going to write a paragraph for you, but if you would like to have a go at this yourself, then obviously pause the video and go and get that download from my website, and you have 15 minutes to answer that question, bearing in mind that you have about 10 to 15 minutes reading time for your 2 sources at the beginning of the exam, okay? So allow yourself 5 minutes to read through it as well. Okay, so this is the source. It is on Do Ghosts Exist? Exploring the Paranormal, so quite an interesting one to read. And this is a 21st century text. So obviously we know that across the 2 papers you'll be assessed on 19th, 20th and 21st century texts. Okay, so this is a nice easy one because obviously the language is language that we use nowadays. So let's have a look at those line numbers in more detail and think about the different techniques that we could use and analyse for our answer. Okay, so it says many ghost hunters and books on hauntings claim that ghosts can be photographed. Okay, so that word claim, which is a verb, okay, is hugely important because obviously when we claim something, we're saying that it is based in fact, okay? So that's a really interesting one that you could analyse for this question. We've got a list and a rule of 3 where it says many things can create orbs, including insects, dusts and flash reflections, okay? We've got the phrase real explanation, so something that's being sold as a fact. We've got repeated scientific details, or the emphasis on how paranormal investigations try and make their results sound scientific, okay? So we've got that phrase there about unscientific and unproven. We've got repetition in the extract itself, and we've also got rule of 3 as well with electromagnetic fields, infrared images and changes in room temperature. So even in just that small section of the specified line numbers, we've got quite a few different language features. Now also what I would say is, obviously like I've done with the verb claim, is you can just comment and analyse on specific words or phrases that answer that question about disbelief in ghosts. So if it's not a language feature, don't worry about it. Think about the actual suggestion of the words, your inference, and then the effect on the reader, and just focus on the word class itself. So my paragraph flowchart for this question is the same as my paper 1 question 2-1, because it's the same question, an analysis of language. So at the beginning of your paragraph, I would advise you obviously answer the question in your own words, starting with a discourse marker, and you consider the technique that the writer has used and the word class that the writer has used, okay? So that comes towards the beginning of your paragraph, although you will see that sometimes we can shift around where we mention about the word class. You need to put your quote in, and then you need to do your dissection at the bottom, okay? So let me just zoom in just to show you this in a bit more detail. Okay, so your dissection is you define the word or phrase within your quote, you imply what the word or words suggest, and then you consider the effect on the reader. And you would need to do that about 4 to 5 times for this question. Okay, so in part 2 of this video, I'm going to go through a paragraph on that paranormal activity question, and I'm also going to give you a question and full sample answer for another practice question that I'm going to give you. And all of these resources are available on my website, acaexams.wordpress.com, which you can go and download for free. And also you can follow me on Twitter at AQA Exams if you've got any questions. I'd love it if you could give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and please do subscribe to the channel because I'll be adding more videos on the AQA GCSE English language exam shortly. Thanks for listening.